All right. We're going to illustrate your lectures. Okay, so we have some whys here. They aid your students in remembering and retaining lecture note material, which is already what you've said. They help to explain concepts. So I think sometimes concepts like that are abstract need to have something that's more black and white to be able to understand. So we need to help our students, help our audience. Might not be students, might be participants, or it might be an audience, but help them to get those concepts. It helps to get your points across. They actually add credibility to your lecture, because it's not just what you say, it's something that's going on. And they can keep the lecture interesting. So I think with our generation of watching social media and stuff, it's like really quick stuff like this, visually. And so we need things that help people to focus on that concept or that point. Okay, so getting the right illustration. Ask 3 questions. Does my point need an illustration? So one way, because sometimes they don't, ask someone if they understand your point. And if not, you may need to illustrate it. So some points are very obvious and everybody gets it. And so that was great. Number 2, what is my purpose or goal for illustrating this point? It's the same as the why. So it's to clarify, to show real life application, to maybe convict of sin, maybe to inspire and move to action, maybe to convince someone of truth, or to make truth memorable. And I would say, because it really is to make it memorable, it's to hang it on something that makes it very obvious that's a main point, or so. And 3, what kind of illustration best suits my purpose? And I like this quote by Mark Twain. The difference between the right word and the almost right word is the difference between lightning and the lightning bug. Mark Twain. Hyperbole. So, yeah. So examples are testimonies. That's like personal story, like I've talked about earlier. Statistics, especially when they're pretty major. Stories. Just not your own personal story, but maybe somebody you know. Or Bible story. Use that as well. Visual aids, pictures, drawings, maps, objects, slides, videos, overhead, transparencies, charts, multimedia. So actually, that's what an illustration should do. Drive it home. Okay? You're going to notice that my PowerPoints generally, not always, but generally are your main points, because this is an illustration. I don't want it to detract from what I'm saying. I want it to bring emphasis. So that's why I have this picture. It's a visual. All right? So, yeah. Any questions? Any illustrations that you have loved? I'm going to tell you a story, a funny one, but.
I won't say it because it's like a 3 or 4 minute illustration, but I actually got it from a TV show. The characters connecting with another character about their brokenness, and it's like different types of brokenness, but how they're like helping each other through a moment.
Mm-hmm.
And I use it in purity intensive.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about confession and accountability of needing to help each other through brokenness.
Mm-hmm.
And it's worked really well.
Mm.
In the past. So I really like it.
That's good. That's awesome.
Bill talked about someone doing a visual with Pringles.
Okay.
Extra Pringles packet, carton thing.
Wow.
in it, and he said that was
Powerful.
2 years ago, and he's,
Still remembers it.
yeah.
Wow. Wow.
I think one that I remember from like a kid that like backfired, like it sticks with me, but I think for bad reasons. And I know a couple of specifically youth pastors that use this. They'll have like a goldfish in like a thing of water, and they'll pick up the goldfish and throw it out and be like, "This is," and then like they'll wait for someone to pick it up and put it in the water.
Trauma.
Because like always someone from the audience runs up, picks up the fish and puts it back in the water. And like the whole illustration is supposed to be like, why did you care so much about the fish and not like your friends that aren't saved?
Right.
But like everyone's always like, yeah, but you just almost
Yeah.
kill the fish. with
Right.
that
They
fish."
can't get past the fish.
But like I know a lot of youth pastors that use that illustration.
Right.
And like, it always doesn't work.
Right.
Oh, that would be traumatizing.
Yeah. That would be traumatizing. Actually, I did one that was a bit traumatizing, and I kind of wonder today if I should have done it. But it was for a historical background for Leviticus at the King's Lodge. And so my opening, whatever, like it was this huge drama, actually. I had all the students go down to another room downstairs, like in the lecture hall, the little lecture room. And this classroom was up above. And I had all the staff acting out what it would have looked like in a temple to Molech. Exactly, which is, it's basically sacrificing babies. So but it was a baby doll, and I had this whole thing, and one of the older women in the class was like traumatized, like she couldn't get past it. So that's where I was like, probably. But it was to see how heinous this was, because we read it and we go,
But it made the point.
it did make it point. It made the point. Oh my gosh, we had the biggest conversation about it in the class. But she was in her 80s. So, like that was just, I might have talked to her beforehand and so on. I also, at that same time, I actually had a lecture about the sacrifice. And so I had a little altar made of bricks and actually sewed a lamb and put a bag of fake blood in the neck and cut it, and the blood came over that actually worked really well. So, however, we had somebody in Montana actually get a lamb
No.
and did it, and that was too much. So, yeah, so there you go.
Well, they have Nikos, and they bring an animal with them. I think it's,
Usually it's chickens.
yeah, chicken.
Yeah.
They're supposed to take care of them and end up in the middle of the week.
Yep. It's always a little trauma,
Yeah.
especially because we're not used to doing that. We're not used to being on farms. So,
Don't say we.
yeah, yes, that is a totally generalization.
Yes, because I'm used to that.
Yeah, well, and I actually did have friends of ours had a farm, and I went to them, and they, when I was a little girl, we did the swinging the chicken around and plucked the chicken afterwards, and so.
I do think it's safe to say an animal should not have to die for illustration.
Right.
I disagree. Yeah, I think the simple ones of percentages, half the group stands up and this group sits down. One person out of a room stands up and they go, okay, this represents the Christians in the 1040 window.
Right.
You're in a room full of 1,000 people. Those usually really hit.
Yeah, that's really good. I like that.
Or one illustration that's not like a visual illustration, but whenever we do unreached people and talk about the 2.2 billion unengaged people, I always look up the population of their city and tell them how many of their cities don't actually know the Lord, and that always hits them.
Yep.
I was in one and they were a town of 45,000. I was like, there's 20,000 of your hometowns that will never hear the gospel as of now.
Wow, that's
And
big.
it just, wait, do you mean our high school? Do you mean this group? And I mean no, 20,000 Brooksville, Florida's will never hear the gospel as of now. And they just couldn't get past that.
Yeah.
Because I think,
That's a really great way to do statistics.
yeah,
It's wonderful because it makes it
Yeah.
so
It's real.
real. Yeah, they can really relate to that. So, all right. So illustrations can be really fun. So, but to think outside of the box, you know, that's the ticket. I think illustrations are really hard when you're under the gun and you are trying to figure out what illustration to have. Don't talk to people. I think sometimes we think, I've got to do this all by myself. We do not need to do that. We have each other, community, and we can help each other get those, you know, illustrations. I think that's really helpful to bounce it off other people. So, yeah, most of my illustrations, I have done that. So, we had when I first was on SBS staff, this is 97, 98 school year, and I didn't know this, but I was teaching the book of Luke, and so I decided to use a scene in Braveheart when William Wallace is being killed. And all these guys came up to me, "It's no fair you took the illustration we wanted to use. We were all betting on who was going to use that one first." I was like, "Oh, sorry." But it was so effective. So anyway, so a lot of people we would sit around talking about what illustrations were out there that were coming out in movies or la la la, and so you can do that too. So, and it sounds like you already were talking about illustrations. Like I heard somebody say that yesterday, talking about illustration ideas. Good, do it. That's awesome. And maybe keep a diary or keep a journal or a post on your computer of ideas that are coming up, because you know that's when you want to remember them. You'll have some place to go and look and see if it fits into what you're doing. So just keep a log of it. So, because I think they're helpful.